Good afternoon, welcome to another cooking video for West Howe Community Enterprises. So this week we're going to make a sausage casserole, and I'm going to start by just showing you what ingredients we've got. This is to make portions for about 6 people, either to eat all as one meal or you can save it and have it another day. So for 6 people, you want, depending on your appetite, you want 1 or 2 sausages per person. We've also got a large red onion, a carrot, we've got some mixed beans and some tin tomatoes. We've got salt, pepper, garlic, tomato puree, cooking oil, and some vegetable stock cubes as well. So I'm going to start by just turning on a low heat. I've got a nice big pan here, and I'm going to put a little bit of oil and just let that start to warm up. While that's happening, we need to just peel our carrot and also chop our onion. So I'm just going to do that whilst the oil's heating up. You don't have to peel the carrot. You can leave the skin on and just give it a really good scrub. I'm peeling this one because the outside didn't look particularly great and it doesn't have quite such a nice flavour. But if you've got carrots that are looking a little bit nicer, maybe younger ones, smaller ones, you might want to use a couple, and you might find that the peel on those is fine. So don't feel that you have to get rid of that if you don't want to. And I'm going to chop up the carrot and the onion quite small because we want them to mix in with the casserole. So, oops, get rid of that bit. Get rid of the ends. And I'm sure a proper chef would know how to do this much more quickly than I'm doing. But the only thing that matters is how it's going to taste at the end. Having some carrot in there will be great. If you prefer, you can use a cheese grater and grate your carrots so that it's really, really fine. It's completely up to you what kind of texture you like. I'm just slicing and then I'm just chopping it into cubes so that it's nice and small. Right, so that's heating up. The first thing that's going to go into the pan will be the sausages, and it's important to just give them a little spike, either with a knife or a fork on the outside, just to break the skin, so that the juices cook and they don't crack or explode or cook unevenly. Particularly with meat sausages, I've got some vegetarian ones, but I'm still going to just pierce them with the knife before I put them in. Oops. Try not to cut any fingers off whilst I'm doing this. Okay, so the carrot is ready. And so I've got my sausages in a bowl. I'm just going to give them all a stab. There we go. And just to make sure that that's nice and hot. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to put the sausages into the pan with the oil and let them cook for about 5 minutes just to get them started. A lot of the cooking with this recipe happens with the lid on and with all the other ingredients in to get the flavours to all combine. But I'm just going to give them a little bit of a start on their own. And while they do that, I'm going to cut up this onion and get that ready. So I'll just put the carrot out of the way. You'll have seen my fantastic onion cutting skills. I'm sure that at home you've all got a quicker, more efficient method of doing this. We basically just want the onion to be nice and small and even pieces. You need to take off the outside sort of layers of this because they tend to be a little bit chewy, and you don't want to find that when you're having a nice casserole. So usually just take off the very outer layer. Again, you will be able to tell as you're looking at your onion, is it nice and crunchy, nice and fresh? There we go. Okay, let's get rid of that. Okay. Keep an eye on your sausages while you're doing this. You might need to just stir them to move them around a bit. We want them all to get hot and just start to cook. Obviously, we don't want any of them sticking to the bottom of the pan or getting burned. And I'm going to pop the onion out of the way into this bowl as well. Oops. Okay. And while that's just carrying on heating up there, good time to get everything else open and ready. Luckily these tins have got ring pulls on, but that might not be the case with yours. So we've got a tin of chopped tomatoes and a tin of mixed beans in water. Doesn't really matter what beans you use, they're all going to taste good with this. Just avoid the ones that are in a particular sauce or that are in oils. You just really want them to be preferably just in water so that they mix in with everything else, and the water will be quite thick because it's been sat with the beans. So I'm going to drain those over the sink and just give them a rinse under some cold water. Okay, so beans are done. I've got in this mix haricot beans, cannellini beans and azuki beans. All beans are generally a good idea. They really bulk out a meal, they're cheap, they're filling, and they're really good for you. They've got loads of fibre in them and lots of protein, so it's a bit of a winner all round. I'm going to keep this tin for the stock later on. And in our pan, my veggie sausages are cooking away. The length of time that you want to leave your sausages in is going to depend a little bit on the sausages that you've got, how big they are. But basically you just wanted to fry them off just so that they've started to cook through. And you'll be able to tell by the colour of the pork. So it's about 5 minutes from when you've put them into the hot pan. And then once they're at that stage where they've started to cook off, we're going to just pop the onions in here now as well, and the carrots. again, depending on how much oil you've put in to start with, if it feels like things are sticking, you can always add a little bit more, but the ingredients themselves will give a little bit of moisture, so you just want to make sure there's enough oil to lubricate things so they're not getting stuck, but you don't want to put in unnecessary extra oil. Okay, so I'm going to leave those in there now to fry for about 5 more minutes, and then the next stage will be to put all of our flavours in there, and our tomato and our stock cubes, and then we leave it to cook. So what I'll do is just crumble the stock cube in here ready, set the timer for 5 minutes, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so the vegetables and sausage have been cooking for about 5 minutes together now. Got a nice sizzling noise coming from the pan, and you can see from the slight change in colour in the onions that it's all starting to cook. So it's time to add the rest of our ingredients. So we're going to add a teaspoon of garlic, approximately, and half a teaspoon of chilli, and then I've got some dried mixed herbs, so a teaspoon of dried mixed herbs. Give that a bit of a mix around. Okay, oh, that smells nice. And we're going to pop in the chopped tomatoes as well now. I don't know if you can hear it, but the wind outside my window is very loud. It sounds like the rain's trying to get in. But it's a good night to have a nice warming sausage casserole. Okay, so that's the tomato in. And we're going to put some tomato puree as well, just to give a bit more of a strong tomato flavour. The suggestion is about 2 tablespoons. So this is actually just a dessert spoon. I don't have a tablespoon. Dessert spoons are quite a bit smaller than a tablespoon. So I'm going to put 4 of these in. You can judge it by eye, or if you have a tablespoon, then 2 of those. The tomato puree will just give it more of a rich flavour than the tinned tomatoes would on their own. Just really concentrated tomatoey goodness. Right, so that's gone in, and it's getting a bit harder to stir now, but that's okay. And then the next thing we have is our can with our stock cube in. So I've just crumbled the stock cube in the bottom of here. I'm using a vegetable one, but you could use a chicken stock cube, or really anything will go. It just adds a bit more flavour. So I've got some boiled water in the kettle, and I'm just putting a little bit in first to dissolve it so that it's not lumpy. Give it a bit of a mash with the fork. I think that's dissolved, and I'm going to fill the tin up. It's about 400 ml water, and then that's going in the pan as well. Ooh, that's hot. Okay, fantastic. Right, so I'm going to give that one last stir carefully because it's quite full, and then the lid goes on, and we're going to leave that to cook through for 20 minutes. So I'm going to set the oven timer and just let that simmer away on a low heat for 20 minutes, and let all those flavours infuse, and let the sausage carry on cooking. And I'll put you on pause and see you in 20 minutes. Okay, so the The casserole's been cooking for 15 minutes now, so I'm just going to give it a stir and see how it's doing. It's smelling really good. Everything's all really blending together, and the kind of broth that's around the veg and the sausages has just started to really thicken up as well, which is good. And the sausages are kind of breaking down, which they will do as they cook. So, I mean, you might choose to cut any larger pieces down if you want to. Mine are sort of doing it as they cook on their own. And that smells delicious. So it's got about 5 more minutes left to go. So I'm going to put the lid back on and leave that alone. And then the next step will be to add our mixed beans in and to give it a taste and see if it needs any more seasoning. So I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, so the casserole's been cooking for 20 minutes now. I'm going to give it a stir, and before I add the beans, I'm actually just going to taste a little bit of the sort of the liquid and just see about how much salt and pepper I might want to add to this. Probably burn my tongue. Wow, that tastes really good. It's really tomatoey, and then it's got the flavour of the sausages that's just all cooking together. That's delicious. I don't think it needs lots of salt because there's a bit of salt from the stock cubes, but I'm going to add a little bit of salt and then quite a bit of pepper because I really like pepper. So I'm just going to sprinkle that in there. And of course, at this stage, if you think that you need to put any more garlic or any more chili or any more herbs in, go for it, chuck those in, and just sort of check out the consistency of the liquid as well. So it should have started to thicken. You don't want this to be dry, but you also don't want it to be too watery. The beans are going to thicken it up a little bit. So this is sort of where I would want it to be at this stage. So I've got quite a bit of liquid in there, but it's quite a nice thick liquid. So I'm not going to add or take anything away from that. I'm just going to pop the beans in, and we want these to then cook in for about 10 minutes, at which point our casserole should be done. So I've just got 1 can of beans in there, but if you're a big fan of beans, or if you just want to bulk it up a bit, you can put another can in there. Brilliant. Okay, so that's all nicely mixed in. So I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes and just let that finish cooking. And I will put you on pause and see you in 10 minutes. Okay, so the oven timer's just gone off. That means that this is now cooked for its final 10 minutes. And I'm just gonna have a little nose and see what we've ended up with. It's bubbling away beautifully there. Excellent. Okay, I'm really happy with that. I'll just show you a bit closer. Okay, so it's got this lovely rich tomatoey colour, and you can just see the beans in there, and the sausages are broken up. Now I'm going to just give it a final taste so you can see how it's gone. That's delicious. I'm going to have some of this with a piece of bread, so I'm going to keep this quite moist consistency. If you do feel that you want to thicken it up a bit, you can add a little bit of corn flour to that mix, but really as a casserole, you want it to be quite moist. This then, you can have it obviously straight away, you can chill it or put it in the freezer and have it later. I'm going to have a bowl now with some bread, and the rest of it I'm going to divide into some storage containers and leave it for 2 hours just to cool down at room temperature first, and then pop it in the fridge or the freezer. Don't leave it out for longer than 2 hours, because it's a bit of a problem then for any kind of growth of bacteria, especially when you're using meat. So 2 hours is really the longest that you want to leave it out for. And I'm just going to be putting it into these little containers, and then I'll be able to enjoy it over the next couple of days. So let me know how you get on our Facebook page or in the comments below on this YouTube video. It'd be lovely to see photographs of your creations, and I'll hopefully see you next week for our next recipe. Have a great day and enjoy your dinner.